Alright guys, so welcome to Ed Puzzle. We're going to be reviewing for your first test, which is on Friday, September 20th. You should have already completed your review sheet in pencil in the boxes that are provided, and then now you're going to go through, and as you watch the video, you're going to make corrections in your colored pen. No dark blue, no black, and no pencil for corrections. And then also, if you're watching this and you find that your answer matches mine, you still have to write the word correct in the box. That way I know that you checked that answer to the video. Okay? So let's get started. For the first two questions, we're going to go back to those laws of exponents. So for number 1, we have 3x squared y to the third is being cubed divided by x to the 7th y to the 5th. So first, everything in the numerator is being cubed. So 3 to the third, that you're going to do normal, just like a normal coefficient. 3 to the third, 3 times 3 times 3 gives you 27. And then you have x squared cubed, power to power you multiply, so that turns into x to the 6th. And then y to the 9th. Divided by x to the 7th, y to the 5th did not receive any exponents. And then you're just going to clean it up. So 27 divided by 1, right, this is really a 1 here, stays as 27. X to the 6th divided by x to the 7th. You're going to take 7 and do 7 minus 6, and you get 1. So it's going to be x to the 7th. It's going to be x to the 1st, I'm sorry. X to the 1st, and then the x to the 1st goes to the bottom because the 7 here was bigger than the 6 on the top. Okay? And then the y's. Y to the 9th divided by y to the 5th. 9 minus 5 is y to the 4th. That y to the 4th goes to the top because the 9 here is bigger than the 5 on the bottom. Okay? So that's your answer to number 1. For number 2, everything in the numerator is being raised to the 5th power. So you would do 2 to the 5th gives you 32. X to the 0 to the 5th. 0 times 5 is still 0. And then y to the negative 15th. Divided by 16, x to the 3rd, y to the negative 10th. Okay, so two things here that are different than from number 1. You have x to the 0 power. X to the 0 power cancels out to be 1. Right, so 32 times 1 is just 32. So really you don't have to write it. You can just cross it out. And then also you have this negative exponent here and here. So we're going to rewrite the entire expression, and we're just going to move those two variables with the negative exponents so that they're positive exponents. So I'm going to rewrite this as 32, because the 32 was good, over the 16x to the third was good. And then I'm just going to change this to be y to the positive 10th on the top and y to the positive 15th on the bottom. So now I'm just going to clean this up. 32 divided by 16 turns into 2. If you want to put that 2 over 1, you can. X to the third is by itself. Nothing's happening to it, but it's in the bottom, so it stays there. And then y to the 10th divided by y to the 15th. 15 minus 10 is 5. The winner goes to the bottom, though, because 15 is the bigger one. Okay? 3 through 5, you are doing indicated operations. So it gives you f of x and it gives you g of x. So you're going to substitute that into the questions for 3 through 5. So number 3 wants you to do g of x times f of x. So g of x is 4x squared. Whenever you substitute, you're going to want to put parentheses. 4x squared plus 9 times f of x is this. So for number 3, you are going to just start distributing. So 4x squared times 2x to the third is 8x to the 5th. And then we have minus 60x to the 4th plus 84x to the 3rd. Remember, whenever you're multiplying terms, you're going to add the exponents. Now you take care of the 9. 9 times 2x to the 3rd gives me 18x to the 3rd. And then minus 135x squared. And then on the end, we have plus 189x. And then you just combine like terms after. So my final answer, I have 8x to the 5th minus 60x to the 4th plus 102 x to the third minus 135 x squared plus 189 x. Okay, the only things that I can combine are these x to the thirds. And remember, whenever you're adding the terms, you leave the like terms at the end. You're not going to combine them to be x to the sixth. That's only when you multiply. Number 4, much easier. It wants us just to add them. So I'm going to substitute this in. Let me change this color. So this would be 2x to the third minus 15x squared plus 21x plus 4x squared plus 9. So now all I have to do, because it's just adding them, you're just really going to be combining like terms. So number 4 should definitely be an easy question. Final answer, 2x to the third minus 11x squared plus 21x plus 9. Remember, you are writing the word correct in the box if you got that answer correct. And number 5, g of x minus f of x. So make sure, again, it's in the correct order. So this is going to be 4x squared plus 9 minus f of x. Again, put it in parentheses. That way you remember to distribute the negative. 2x to the third minus 15x squared plus 21x. So you're going to distribute the negative to everything that follows. So I'm going to rewrite this as 4x squared plus 9 minus 2x to the third plus 15x squared minus 21x. And then I combine like terms. The 2x to the third is negative. Doesn't combine with anything. 4x squared and 15x squared give me 19x squared. And then negative 21x plus 9 doesn't combine with anything. So that's my answer to number 5. Really quickly, if you have fractions, type them in the calculator. Don't get caught up with the fractions. Same thing if you have decimals, type it in the calculator just to be double sure. And then also if it says subtract from, make sure you flip those around. Okay, those are really the only tricks with that. Number 6 is evaluating this function. It gives you r of x over here. So all you have to do, I want you to find r of 3, r of negative 5, and r of x plus 2. These are all inputs. They are all inside of the parentheses. You substitute whatever is in the parentheses for x in the question, and then you get the output as your answer. So for number 6, when you do r of 3, you plug in 3. So it's 3 times, instead of x, 3 times 3 squared, plus 14 times 3 minus 30. So r of 3, you should have 39. Same thing with number 7. R of negative 5, you should get negative 25 though. Make sure you're careful with the parentheses. A negative squared ends up becoming a positive. So be careful with that. And then number 8 I'll actually go through. So number 8, it's an algebraic, right, because it has an x, algebraic input, which should give you an algebraic output. So if I want to do r of x plus 2, I would do 3 times x plus 2 squared plus 14 times x plus 2 minus 30. Now right away, you should have seen this x plus 2 squared. Remember, x plus 2 squared, you're going to write out twice as x plus 2 times x plus 2. And you have to double distribute that. Everything else stays the same for now, so plus 14 times x plus 2 minus 30. So this is going to be 3 times, when I double distribute this and combine like terms, I get x squared plus 4x plus 4. This turns into 14x plus 28 minus 30. Here, this is now 3x squared. I distribute the 3. 3x squared plus 12x plus 12. And then you still have that ending, plus 14x plus 28 minus 30. And my final answer, 3x squared plus 26x. And then 12 and gives me plus 10 on the end. So that is r of x plus 2. Again, an algebraic output. Numbers 9 and 10 wants the inverse function. So remember, an inverse, that notation is going to look like this. okay, unless the letter is different. So for number 9, your first step, this is going to be y equals the square root of x plus 5 minus 8. Now I'm going to switch the x and the y. Those are my first 2 steps, super easy. The hard step is now solving for y. So to solve for y, I would add the 8 over first. And now I have this square root that's a problem. To get rid of a square root, I can't get to the plus 5 because it's inside of the square root. To get rid of it, I'm going to square both sides. Now the question doesn't say anything about polynomial form or anything like that, so I really don't have to multiply the x plus 8 squared. So I'm going to leave that as x plus 8 squared equals, the radical cancels with the square, equals y plus 5. And then I would subtract the 5 over. So y equals x plus 8 squared minus 5. And technically this is an okay answer. Of course I have to rewrite it. So x plus 8 squared minus 5 is okay. Now if you did distribute it, your answer would still be okay. If you did, that answer would be, this would be x squared plus 16x, and then plus 64 minus 5 would be plus 59. Okay, either this one or this one, here or here, I would take. Okay? Now remember, whenever you're doing the opposite and you're taking the square root to get rid of something squared, you have to do plus and minus. Whenever your root is even, so if you're taking a square root, a fourth root, a sixth root, you have to have the plus or minus out front. Number 10, this was the hardest type of inverse, is a rational function. So as always, we're going to start off, y equals 2x plus 7 divided by x minus 3. I switch the x and the y, so x equals 2y plus 7 divided by y minus 3. Now again, my steps are going to be the same, so I put this over 1 and I cross multiply. So 1 times 2y plus 7 is 2y plus 7 equals x times y minus 3 is xy minus 3x. Now, I want to bring all of my y's to one side, and anything without a y I'm going to put to the other side. So I am going to add this 3x to the other side, and I'm going to subtract the 2y over. Okay? So now I have 3x plus 7. It's a positive 3x because I added over since it was minus, equals xy minus 2y. Now, on the right side, I have 2 y's here. So I am going to take out a GCF of y, and I'm left with x minus 2. So now to get y by itself, I divide by x minus 2. So this cancels. I get y equals 3x plus 7 divided by x minus 2, but I'm going to remember to write it in the correct form. So the inverse of g of x equals 3x plus 7 divided by x minus 2. 11 to 14 is what we've been practicing this past week. This is factoring stuff. So first, you always want to look for a GCF. So when I look at number 11, I see that I can take out a 5 x squared y as a GCF. When I pull that out, I am left with 9x to the 4th minus 16 y squared. Now that is your example for dots, because 9x to the 4th, or the difference of two squares, 9x to the 4th is a perfect square, 16y squared is a perfect square, and you have subtraction in the middle. So you take the square root of each one. So the square root of 9x to the 4th is 3x squared. So that comes first in your parentheses. And then the square root of 16y squared is 4y. And then you have a plus and a minus in the middle. And 5x squared y comes out, because that's what comes back out to the front, because that's what your GCF was. And then you check your parentheses. You can't do anything else. So that's it for number, what is that, 11. All right, that's done. For number 12, We have 3 terms here, so this is going to be your example of master product. However, first, look to see what you can take out as a GCF. So 6, 9, and 60 all have a 3 in common. And then you can also take out x squared. I am left with 2x squared minus 3x minus 20. So now I have to try and see if, for these 3 terms, if I could do master product. 2x squared times negative 20 is negative 40x squared. I look in my calculator, or I try to come up with the factors on my own. I end up getting, it's a positive 5x and a negative 8x that add to be this negative 3x here. So this is 2x squared plus 5x minus 8x minus 20. And now I do factor by grouping. So on the left, I take out an x. I'm left with 2x plus 5. On the right, I take out a negative 4. And I am left with 2x plus 5. My parentheses match, right? 2x plus 5. So that's how I know I did it correct. So the 2x plus 5 comes out. And I am left with x minus 4. Okay, do not forget, GCF comes out to the front after. Okay, and that's how you do master product. For number 13, 128x to the third plus 250. I look to see for a GCF. Number 13 has a GCF of 2. So I'm going to take out a 2. And I am left with 64x to the third plus 125. 64 and 125 are on my perfect cubes list. And then x to the third, 3 is divisible by 3, so it's a perfect cube. All right? Again, for cubes, it could be plus or minus in the middle. I have a small set of parentheses and then a big set of parentheses. I take the cube root of each one. Right? So the cube root of 64x to the third is 4x to the first. The cube root of 125 is 5. Right? So this is going to be my A and my B. And then we have in the second set of parentheses, we're going to use 4x and 5 to rewrite a squared, a times b, and then b squared. So if a is 4x, 16x squared. A times b, 20x. And then b squared, 25. And then you use SOAP to figure out the signs. So first, so we have same, right? This was a plus originally. So same, opposite, always positive. Okay, you're not going to be able to factor this trinomial at all. If you started to try master product, it's not going to work out, so it's done. That's all you can do for number 13. And now number 14. So we have 4 terms. 16, 32, negative 1, and negative 2 don't have anything in common other than 1. And then you don't even have x's and everything. So then I could right away just try to start grouping. So we have 4 terms, so I'm just going to try and split it down the middle. On the left, I could take out a 16, x to the 4th, and I am left with x plus 2. On the right side, I would take out a negative 1, and I'm left with x plus 2. My parentheses match, so that comes out, x plus 2 times 16x to the 4th minus 1. 16 and 1 are perfect squares. X to the 4th is a perfect square, and we have subtraction in the middle, so this is dots. So the x plus 2 you leave alone. The square root of 16x to the 4th is 4x squared. And then the square root of 1 is 1. And then you have a plus and a minus in the middle. Now if you look again, though, you can do dots again on this last one. 4x squared is a perfect square. 1 is a perfect square. Subtraction in the middle. So 4x squared minus 1, that'll turn into 2x. Right? Because the square root of 4x squared is 2x. The square root of 1 is 1. You have a plus and a minus in the middle. And then everything else just stays the same. So x plus 2 times 4x squared plus 1 times 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 1 is your final completely factored answer. And lastly, we have our 2 word problems. So number 15, the number of computers Best Buy sold since 2005 is N of T. The price per computer is P of T. T is the number of years since 2005. Find the standard form polynomial R of T. So it wants R of T. So you call it R of T. That describes their total revenue for any given year in terms of T. So the revenue is how much money they're earning. So again, it gives you the number of computers sold is N of T. And the price per computer is P of T. The question, find the standard form polynomial that describes the total revenue for any given year. So you have to figure out what operation this is. This is actually going to be multiplication, right? So you take the number that you are selling and you multiply that by the price for each one to figure out how much money you're earning. Again, revenue is not profit. That's different. Okay, so R of T is equal to 5T plus 106 times 13T squared minus 25T plus 60. Now you're not done because this says a standard form polynomial. So you actually have to multiply it out. Okay, this is the only question in number 15. So once you get this, then you're done. So when you multiply everything out, all right, I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna pause it and write all of them out. When they pop up, just check each of your terms and then check your answer. Okay. All right, so that's everything multiplied out. Okay, so 65t to the third minus 125t squared plus 3000t plus 1378t squared minus 2650t plus 63,600. So now when I combine like terms to give me my final answer, I should have 65t to the third plus 1253t squared plus 350t, and then plus 63,600. Please be careful. I know they use t a lot instead of x, so it's usually either x or t. It doesn't have to be. But the biggest complaint that I find is that your t's look like pluses and then you guys get all messed up. So what I usually do, I'll put like a little curve on my t. I try to make it look different somehow. Okay, so just be very careful with the t and the plus sign. And then last one, number 16. Company producing new line of smart TVs. The cost for the production is C of X. X represents the number of televisions produced in thousands. The revenue is R of X. Same deal. X represents the number of televisions produced in thousands. Question, write a polynomial P of X in simplest form that represents the total profit gained by the television. So I'm not even going to read that second part yet. I'm going to take that question, I'm going to answer it. So the total profit, if you remember I told you, it gives you the cost and it gives you the revenue. To figure out the profit, you would subtract those two. Okay? You would take how much money you earned, the revenue, and then subtract how much money you spent. So P of X would be equal to R of X minus C of X. So we have 3.8 x to the fourth minus 5.4 x squared plus 9x minus 154.8. And you are going to subtract C of X, which is 7.5 x squared plus 8x minus 95.25. Okay, make sure you distribute the negatives. So your answer for the first part, when you do the subtraction, combine like terms, use your calculator for the decimals, please. The second I throw decimals in it, it's like all breaks loose. 3.8 x to the fourth minus 12.9 x to the third plus x. Oh, hold on. This is minus 12.9 x squared. Sorry. Minus 12.9 x squared plus x, and then minus 59.55. That's the answer to the first part. Now I go back. Determine a profit generated if there are 8,000 smart televisions produced. So the number of televisions produced, that's x. So it's giving me the input. 8,000 is going to go for your input. However, remember, x represents the total number of televisions produced in thousands. So you're not going to plug 8,000 in. You're only going to plug in, you're only going to plug in 8. So you would do P of 8. P of 8. And then you plug all of that in. You could type it directly into your calculator. Please be careful. You get an answer of 14,000. Again, it's money. So 14,687.65. You should never have more than 2 decimals for money. And that is your answer. Okay? Extra help is Thursday after school in room 204. Let me know if you have any questions.